have a bunch of constraints here. So basically what I have here is that I have a minimum times the maximum range, maximum flight range per vehicle, plus the number of vehicles. So I'm trying to minimize, in this case, the number of vehicles, and then also trying to minimize the maximum range per vehicle. That's just trying to minimize the maximum range per vehicle. So, what I'm basically saying is that in this case, what I'm doing is that I have 6 vehicles. Actually, it's 5 points, but I have 6 vehicles, and this x actually is an integer, which is actually the total sum of the amount of vehicles, right? So all vehicles are active, x has to be 6, and if only 2 are active, then x only has to be 2. Then here, S1 max basically means that the maximum range basically has to be for each vehicle has to be the maximum range is larger or equal to the distance per vehicle back at the depot. So this we have to repeat this for all the ones. So this is, for example, if the last segment here is going from node 1 back to the depot, then this actually the maximum range has to be at least as large as this number. So this number has to be smaller or equal to as maximum. So for each link back to the depot, the total distance traveled there has to be larger or equal to the maximum distance. Well, here basically what we have is that if a vehicle decides to fly from a certain route, then this S11 is basically again the time or the range in this case at node 1 for vehicle 1, for vehicle 1 at node 1, and it has to be less or equal to a certain number. So the mean basically if x101, if this is equal to 1, then actually minus S11 has to be small or equal to minus, what is it, about 10.05. And if this is 1, this constraint is actually, and if this is 0, then this will actually always suffice. So this is more or less an OR constraint. And here, so you see, this is actually from the depot, but we've left out the range at the depot to start off with. That's because if we also add it here, and then also add it here, then actually the range at the depot should have 2 different values, so that's not possible. So we left it out for the starting point, so we don't count it there, so we can actually have the range at the end, at the depot. And otherwise, again, it would have 2 different values. So here, the range for vehicle 1 at the depot has to be within a certain range. Well, this basically says that a vehicle has to depart from a certain node. It says it has to arrive at a certain node. This one is actually redundant. And here, basically, because we already have this constraint, which actually says that if a certain vehicle arrives at a depot, it must also leave the depot. And this one basically says vehicle, in this case 1, can only leave the depot if it's active. But if x1 is equal to 1, then only one of the other variables can be 1. And if it's 0, then they all have to be 0. And this one is basically meaning that in this case, a link may only travel in one direction. In this case, it's actually also redundant because of this constraint, because actually would mean that the distance at node 1 would actually be equal to the distance at node 2 plus time distance. So if you have positive time between it, it would be infeasible. So actually this one, these are actually redundant. So they're unnecessary, so it actually necessarily complicates our problem. Now, if we then run this, in this case I run it with LP solve, is actually, this is what it is I fix the number of vehicles. In this case, of course, what's in the objective actually doesn't matter anymore, but it simply said, okay, x has a certain value. So if I say x is 1, then of course we only have a single vehicle, and it will have to travel the entire route. And what you see then, of course, it first chooses the closest or the one after closest point. So it simply goes from the origin to the closest point, and then it simply flies around. It simply does the entire tour and then comes back. It can also, so it can go start either in this direction or that direction. That would actually, in this case, be the same thing. But because the depot is slightly offset, we will always start off with the closest point because the distance between the points is always equal in this case. Well, if we then allow it to have 2 vehicles, then it will actually have one route with 3 nodes, which are actually the 3 closest nodes. And the 3 further nodes will actually be done with the second vehicle. If we go to 3, then what we'll have is that the, let's say, the two closer nodes are done by one vehicle, and then the furthest node is actually done by the third vehicle. This is exactly what we expect. This distance is longest, so in this case you travel this twice. Here we have to have three distances, so here you pick the closer node, and that's the optimum solution. And then if we do 4, then actually if we look at the maximum range, there's also just a marginal improvement there. So adding a 4th vehicle will actually not limit the maximum range of the vehicle significantly. And what you can see here is, of course, again, the two closest nodes are done by a single vehicle, and all the other nodes are done by another vehicle. So you see the marginal improvement in range is short. So if we would be designing a vehicle to fly this route, then having a 4 vehicle does not show significant improvement, but will also show that later on we can do multiple objectives. And if we have 5, of course, each of the routes is done by a single vehicle. In this case, here and back is the longest distance, so that's actually the maximum range. So this exactly is what we expect the model to give us. Also, if you do your assignment, you pick a subject, this is the kind of analysis I want to see, so you show, okay, this model indeed produces the results I expect, and these results make sense. So now, if we actually have if we now let go of x, and we told the 0.3, we actually, that's a variable, that's equal to 0.3, which is the maximum number. But if we now vary this value, how does our value change? Well, if the larger we make this range objective weight factor, of course, the larger our solution, our z will be. And we see a number of discrete steps happening. So if we have the range objective weight factor, if that's very small, so if we don't think the range of the vehicle is very important, then what we'll do is we'll use a single vehicle and have that fly all the routes. At a certain point, the cost of adding an extra vehicle and the cost of the change in range by having that extra vehicle basically outweigh each other. So in that case, you see the solution jump from having, let's say, one-way vehicle to having 2 vehicles, but having a shorter range. So in this case, these are cost equal, these 2 points. So it jumps to another solution. Much like we have with the simplex method, if you have a cost coefficient of 0 in your objective value for let's say a non-basic variable, then it can actually have multiple objectives. So for exactly this way, we have 2 possible solutions to exactly the same problem. Now again, if we change this range objective weight factor even more, then again at this point you'll again see a jump. So in this case, having 3 vehicles with a lower range is the same as having 2 vehicles with a longer range. So the objective here, the weight is such that that they have the same value. And then we continue on for a long time with 3 vehicles, and then suddenly here you see it jump to 5. So what you see here is it never decides to use 4 vehicles because the shift there is so small that there's no, if you look at the shift in objective, there's no point in using 4 vehicles. So you either use 3 or you go to 5. And then, of course, if we have 5, well, there's no point in using more than 5 because we have 5 destinations, so a 6th vehicle will never actually do anything. So we show here that indeed this is the behavior, and well, especially when we jump from 3 to 5. Again, that has to do with the low increment here, which simply never, so that this decrease in range never justifies adding an extra vehicle. But if we go to 5, the change is much larger, so that actually does happen. And then what we can actually also do is create a so-called Pareto front, which basically what we do is we take all the optimum solutions, and in this case we create this curve where we can see, let's say the range, the maximum range required for each vehicle. We have 5 vehicles, 3 vehicles, 2 vehicles, and 1 vehicle. And here actually what we can see is having a trade-off with, let's say, respect, for example, if we're designing a vehicle for this route, how many vehicles do we need versus what must be the maximum range for this vehicle. And this, for example, is a very nice outcome. If you go to a policymaker, you can say, okay, these are options. Either you're going to need 5 vehicles with a limited range, or you need 1 vehicle with a long range, and you can make your decision on what to do with that solution for you. Another interesting example is, in this case, we have a 3 aircraft coming into land. First aircraft arriving at 0 seconds, second at 50 seconds, and the third at 100 seconds. So they're coming in at too short an amount of time. The first aircraft is medium size, second heavy, and third medium size. And each aircraft combination has a certain time. If you want to know more about about what the time, in the airport planning, I'll talk about the wave vortex separations, but here just see it as input. So each aircraft must have a certain amount of time. So if we have two medium-sized aircraft, they must be at least 100 seconds. If we have a medium and then a heavy, they can be a bit closer. If the medium doesn't really pull on weight, so the heavy can be closer to that. If you have a heavy and a medium, then we need a very large separation. If we have two heavies, then we need 100 seconds. So if we have these three aircraft, we want to determine in which order should we let them land. Well, if we look at this, there are basically 6 options. So we can have the first aircraft, first 1 to 3, so 3 times 2 options. Yeah, so we can have first 1 to 3 land, then there's 2 left, and there's 1 left. There's basically 6 options to let them land in this case. So, create a binary integer problem for this. So basically we have in this case we're minimizing the sum of the delay for each aircraft. So this is delay for aircraft 1, delay for aircraft 2, delay for aircraft 3. Basically here what we're saying is the time for aircraft 2 minus the time for aircraft 1, so the time difference between 2 and 1, from 1 to 2 has to be equal to, if the order is 1 to 2, then it has to be equal to 87, because in that case this will be 0. But if order 2, 1 is 1, then actually this is so large, then this will always be fulfilled. So you see, and here if I say the order 1, 2, then actually this is 0. So in that case, it's time 1 minus time 2. So in that case, this is a variable. I can actually add these together, so I can actually eliminate order 1, 2, and actually I have only order 2, 1 by taking order 1, 2 is 600 minus order 2, 1. So I can actually change them out. We'll see that in the next slide. Yeah, so these are basically order scripts. Well, here you have to pick either order 1 to 2 or order 2 to 1. So these two together have to equal 1. So you have to pick one of these two. Same as the order from 1 to 3 or 3 to 1, or 2 to 3 and 3 to 2. Yeah. So basically here what we decided is in the order of the aircraft landing in. Depending on the order, we need to have a minimum separation between the aircraft. Well, here basically what we're saying is that the time 1 minus delay 1 has to be equal to 0. So if time 1 is 50, then delay 1 has to be 50. So this way we actually couple the delay to the time. If you look at aircraft 2, time 2 minus delay 2 is 50. So if time 2 is 100, then delay 2 has to be 50. So we actually fix the delay to the time it actually lands at. And of course it means that in this case it could be no longer because delay 2 a minimum value is 0. That means time 2 in that case would be 50. So time 2 can never be less than 50 in this case. Yeah. So just a lot of logic statements here. And then have a look at the time separation. Yeah. Okay, so now how can we solve this? You can throw it into a solver, but let's just solve this more or less by hand. So in this case, I've actually said, okay, that O from I to J is 1 time minus OJ to I, so I actually, I've replaced O12 by O21. O12 is 1 minus O21. So if I then replace it, I only have 3 variables, and I also can scrap this one, so I can actually reduce the problem a bit. By simply eliminating those variables. And now we have this problem. And in this case, what you see now is we only have these if it actually shifts. So 031 is, if this is 0, then there's actually no shift. So we normally, the basic order is 1, 2, 3. And 031 basically means we have to shift, and now it's only 3 before 1. Okay? So let's look at 2 options in this case. What if order 2, 1 is 0? So actually, if aircraft 1 comes before aircraft 2, and what if order 2, 1 is 1? And that means that aircraft 2 comes first, and then aircraft 1. Well, if we now replace these values in here, you can see in this case, this one, T2 minus T1 has to be larger or equal to 87. And that actually means that T2 has to be at least equal to 87 plus T1. So T2 must be at least 87, and that means that it lands 30. Delay 2 in that case will be at least 37. And the rest actually can be reduced. We order 2, 1 to 1, then it means actually that in this case, this one doesn't matter, so this will always be fulfilled. But the time 1 lands at minus the time 2 lands at, so the distance is 181. So it actually means that in this case, if T2 is 50, because T2 could be no longer 50, T1 suddenly now becomes 231. Which means delay is 231. So D1 is then at least, in the left case, is at least 0, D2 is at least 37, D3 is at least 0. So objective in this case will be at least 37. In this case, delay 1 will be at least 231, delay 2 will be at least 0, and D3 will be at least 0. So now if we look at it, actually if I sum it up here, what you can see is the result, if I just run it into LP solve, this is like an LP relaxed solution, but I fixed the order of 2, 1 to either 0 or 1. And what you can see here is if I have fully released, then I get order 2, 1 is 0.062, and order 3, 2 is 0.218, and order 3, 1 is 0. But you see this proof absolutely makes no sense because these are really binary variables, so it's either 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, and I was choosing something halfway, which makes no logical sense. So this, of course, is infeasible, and of course, this allows it actually to have a objective of 0. So basically, because of that, it managed to negate all our constraints. So now what we've done is we've fixed the order of 2 to 1 to 0, in which case, if we now run it, we get an order 3, 2 of 0.28, and we get a value of 37. And if we fix it to 1, then we get we can still get 2 non-integer variables, and we get a value of 231. So what we're trying to minimize the total delay. So what we'll look at now, and what you can see here is that these switching must be declared binary, or you'll get a nonsense result. So you should really have to use binary variables here. And the 37 is a much more interesting solution than 231. So we'll first look at this one, the 37. Okay, so what we do now is that we'll look at, okay, what if the order from 3 to 1 is 0, or order from 3 to 1 is 1? So 3, 0 means we first have aircraft 1 and then aircraft 3, or it's first aircraft 3 and then aircraft 1. Well, you see in this case, it still remains 37, so it won't change that. But if we change the order from 3 to 1, then actually it ends up as 437 as the minimum value, and this is basically our IP relaxed solution. Again, 37 is the more interesting value, so what we look at now is the order of 3, 2. What is the order of 3, 2? If that is actually 0, in that case we get an answer which is 205. But if we take the order 3, 2 as 1, and then we solve it, then of course now all our binaries are, we get a fully integer or binary solution. In this case we get 137, this is a lower value, so this is what we call our incoming solution. So this now is our basic value. So we now have a solution, and it's the lowest solution we found, so we call that the incumbent solution. And that's the value of 137. What we also know is that if we look at the other branch, where we basically had, for this one, we had a z which at least was 231, and if we actually make, if we change these to integer, to 0 or 1, this value will only be higher. So we know that the value which will come out of this branch will never be less than 231. Well, now as we already have an incumbent solution with 137, we don't even have to look at this branch because the answer will always be worse off than we already are. So in this case, we can just throw that away, and we are sure now we have our optimal answer without actually having looked at all the possibilities. Yeah. So we can basically, in this case, we can fathom these. So the branch of 021 is 1. We can simply say, okay, we can fathom this because we know we're always going to be worse off. So in this case, we've already found our optimum with a lot fewer options. Just to sum up, then actually just to show you the different possibilities, if we actually would, now we only have 3 variables, so it basically means we have, if we have 3 binary variables, there's 2 times 2 times 2, so there's actually 8 possible options. Before I showed you, actually for the 3 aircraft landing, there are actually 6 options. In this case, that means there are actually 2 infeasible ones. So if we look actually here, 0, 1, and 0 is actually not feasible. So if we have first 2 and then 1, and then 3 and then 1, we cannot have 3, and then 2. Yeah. So first have 2 to 1, and then 1 to 3. Then so this actually is 1 to 3. So this is 1 to 2, and then 3 to 1. Then of course 3 cannot be after 2. So these basically are infeasible solutions. So these order are not possible. So if we go from 1 to 2 and then from 2 to 3, then 3 to 1 is not feasible. If we go from 2 to 1 and then 1 to 3, then of course 3 to 2 is not feasible. So these two are feasible, and then here we have our sixth solution. You can see these all have a certain cost, and this is indeed our minimum. Well, this is a small problem, but if you go to thousands and thousands of variables, you're very happy that you don't have to look at a certain part of your solution tree. Well, what if now if we would say, okay, let's make this, let's now do the same thing with 10 aircraft. How many possible solutions in the tree would we have then? Start the timer. Slightly larger than we thought. The answer, of course, is 10 factors, the faculty of 10. So the faculty of 10, so this is actually the faculty of 10. So that's indeed is the amount of options we have. So then we would have 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6. So that indeed is the number of options we actually have, to the different orders we can put them in. But if we actually create a tree the same way we did now, then we end up with, basically n times n minus 1 divided by 2. And this is actually the amount of different, different binaries we need, right? So we need to have, for every aircraft, and every aircraft except that, so in this case it's 10 times 9, but then we're counting double because 9 to 10 and 10 to 9 are actually the same, so we divide it by 2. Formally we've also used before when we were picking a certain number out, when we looked at the simplest method, right, at the number of quote-unquote solutions. And then, so these are then are the number of binaries, and then if we now look at that, then the amount of different possibilities, values for those binaries, actually 2 to the power of the number of binaries. So in this case, it's this ridiculously large number. What it also means is that we get a ridiculously large amount of infeasible solutions, which basically means this is not a very good way to model it. Any idea of what would it be a better way to model this? So in this case, we've chosen a very poor model, but 3 aircraft is okay, but its size is pretty horrible. What is another way in which we could do this? Yeah, so what we can actually do is if we model this much like we do a vehicle rather than a traveling salesman, is we can actually change it. But first this. So if we're trying to solve large problems, very important for the first phase is that we have a good initial solution. So if you have an initial solution, if you give the solver an initial solution, it can use that to actually throw away parts of the tree and not look at them. So when they solve the screening problem, they have a good initial solution, and that actually meant that they can throw a large part of the problem away because they know, a certain range of solutions will simply not be optimal. Pre-processing, fixing variables. So there's certain variables which you'll know they have to have a certain value, because else it will be infeasible. So like we had here, we had the two combinations which were infeasible. If we scrap those in advance or reformulate our model to eliminate those, then that will make our model simpler, and let's say reduce our solution space. Eliminate redundant constraints. So what you see often is that a constraint, like I showed you before, when we talk about vehicle routing problem, is that there's constraints there which are not necessary because other constraints already basically fulfill that requirement. And if we eliminate those, then it doesn't have to evaluate them. So again, this can save a lot of computational time. Also, if you have an entire constraint in the feasible region, but also, especially after we've already fixed the variable, then we can also even eliminate constraints. What we also do is tighten constraints. and I wanted to add well, there's an example of a book in this. But what you can have is like 6x1 plus 3x2 plus 4x3, and basically it's smaller or equal to 10. And basically you can simplify that to 2x1 plus 1x2 plus 1x3 is smaller or equal to 4. And that does exactly the same thing. It allows the same values for x1, x2, and x3, but in a much simpler way, and you don't get the same, let's say the right-hand side will automatically mean that the point-to-point solution has integer values, so we don't have to shift the values to shift the constraints to integers. And there's a couple of examples of that in the homework. Also, what we can do is add cutting planes, so we can actually add constraints. And because of that, what we can do is actually reduce the feasible region of the black solution to basically limit it to only the integer programming solution. So actually, by cutting off, let's say, part of it, we can make it much easier to solve. And again, or we can make the LP solution have as many integer variables as possible. So if we look at the aircraft order example, one of the things you can do in this case is say, okay, we're only going to allow aircraft within a certain time window to switch. So we're going to say, okay, aircraft 1 and 2 can switch, but not aircraft 1 and 5. So we actually limit the amount of solutions. Aircraft 1 and 5 switching, aircraft 5 is so far away, that's not likely to be an option. So if we just eliminate that possibility, then that actually simplifies our problem. We can also have a certain window. We can also have a certain window where time switch is only allowed. So in that case, we'll look at a certain time window. The switch is only allowed within that time window, plus the maximum time separation. So we can, in that case, change our constraints. And so that way, and what we can do is, so in this case, what we do is we use a variable time window. If it's within a certain window, then they can switch. If it's beyond a certain window, then we actually fix the order, but we still take into account the time separation. And if it's beyond that, then actually we don't even take account the time separation, because the time separation will always be larger than the maximum time separation. So in this case, if you don't do this, then what will happen if you just say, okay, it's within 5 minutes, then what it'll do is it'll switch 2 aircraft and just put one outside the 5 minutes, and then suddenly it gets an optimal, which is not realistic. So in this case, you have to make sure that even outside the windows in which you can switch, that you don't get any, let's say, border effects of shoving problems outside the horizon. That's not just something you see in management, but you see in operations research as well. So the solver will have a tendency to throw the problem outside the time window. And you solve that by having a let's say, flexible time window. What's even better in this case is actually having a directional traveling salesman approach, or let's say, like a vehicle routing problem. So in this case, what we do, instead of having the orders, we simply pick the sequence of the aircraft. So what a traveling salesman or vehicle routing does is it picks the sequence of nodes to visit. We can also formulate a way that actually it picks the sequence of the aircraft. And what we can even add in this case, so in this case, because we just have arriving aircraft, we can actually show that we could ignore any second aircraft, so it's only between aircraft 1 and 2, and between 1 and 3, 1 and 3 will always be larger than from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. However, if you look at mixed mode operations, then actually 2 arrivals with the departure in between. The 2 arrivals might be more constraining than the departure in between. But then we get into details in that case, we can add an extra constraint and actually also take that into account by adding a constraint like that. Well, in this case, the great thing about a directional traveling salesman is, again, like I said before, subgroups will not occur. But in that case, it means we have to go back in time. So we don't have to worry about them. So that's good news. So in this case, we can, if we reformulate the model, we can actually go through the model much faster and get an optimum much faster. So something else we can do in this case, even though it's a simple model, we can also have different objectives. In your homework, instead of having the delay, we have a rudimentary way of actually looking at the fuel consumption. So in this case, the order. If we simply say, if we try to minimize the number of order changing, then that basically means it will simply put all the orders into 0. So that way we can easily get a reference solution to see if that's indeed correct. So this is an easy way, but also even if you're in a traffic control, it can be nice to say, okay, we don't want to minimize the number of order changes, because each order change means you have traffic control has to do a certain number of things, and we don't want to overload them. total delay, so simply sum of delay, well, we already did that. You can also look at the maximum delay, so we can introduce a maximum delay and then try to minimize that. Again, it's probably slightly more fair. Sum of fuel, which we simply say, okay, if you have a amount of fuel being consumed per time unit of delay, so the more we delay, the more the fuel consumption will be, and that's also what you'll do in your homework. In that case, okay, they haven't consumed twice as much fuel as a medium aircraft. You need to get a slightly different tree because of that. And also the maximum time, so I want to basically, the last aircraft is land within a certain range, or I want to minimize the time at which the last aircraft lands. But we can have all these different objectives, and with the same model, we have the same feasible region, but we might get, especially for the larger models, we might get a different solution. What's very important when we're actually doing that is that we have to normalize our objectives. So if you look at certain objectives, in this case, what I've done is I've optimized for each of them, separately determined what then the other objectives would be, and then determined the workable range of each of these objectives. I won't go into much detail, but what you notice, for example, and this is for I think a larger model. What you see, for example, the total delay goes very large. The amount of order change doesn't go beyond 5. So we need to weigh these differently, because otherwise, if we just sum them up, then the total delay and especially the total delay, but also the fuel, have much higher values than the other, so they will dominate our objective. By weighing them, simply looking at what's the workable range, 1 divided by the workable range times each objective, and then using the weighing factor will also basically get them into a more workable situation. Another example, gate capacity. We're running a bit out of time, but here basically what we have is a basic gate capacity. So we talk about gate assignment. Gate capacity is something similar, but in that case we don't differentiate between different, so we have a certain number of gates of a certain type, and we're not really looking at is a gate 1 or 2 or 3 of that type. There's no direct airline preference there, but we simply want to know how many gates of each type do we need, and to what type of gates do we assign them. So there's certain costs here. So we have a number of type Y, which can be a certain aircraft type, it can be Schengen, non-Schengen, all sorts of things like that, but we just have a number, so it's not a binary. A normal gate planning model would be binary. And in this case, we use an integer. So there's certain costs of assigning certain types of certain gates, or certain stands. If you have a remote stand, for example, we have the cost of busing. So that will, but also if there is the cost of the building, if we have a contact stand, it will be much more expensive than a remote stand. So in this case, we can basically look between investment costs and operational costs. Well, then there's AIJ, basically in this case, determines if a flight I is actually compatible with gate J, and if it is, then it's a 1, and it's allowed, and if it's not, it's 0, and that can be due to size, so you can park an A3 and get a stand for a -8. Meet the passport zone, does Schengen and non-Schengen match, but also security requirements, meaning certain aircraft not parked at the gate. Occupancy of flight I at time K, at time T, is a flight is there at a certain time. You add buffer time to that, then it will get to that. And what we usually do is we evaluate it per 5 minutes, and only basically have to do an evaluation when the flight arrives. If no flight arrives, our flights depart, our problem will also always just be simpler. So the previous constraints will still cover that one. But only when a new flight arrives, you actually have to do the evaluation. That way we can really so this is an example of a model we had a student look at with NACO for use in master planning. And if you have a schedule, you can actually look at, okay, what kind of trade-offs can the airport make? In this case, we're looking at operational versus investment costs. So remote stands have very high operational costs, need busing, also low level of service. While contact stands are quite expensive to build. So here, for example, this is a very simplified model. You can show, well, you can choose either for very high operational costs, but let's say no investment costs, or quite low investment costs, or for very high investment costs, no operational costs. And if you look at the total objective and the way you weigh these, and things of these are like how often are you going to use it, the amount of years you're using it, and things like that.